I've spent many years working inside the American military system. I sat in the planning rooms. I read the reports about possible dangers. I watched the official plans change over time. In too many cases, I saw those plans fail to change even when clear proof showed they needed to. What happened in northern Israel over the past 48 hours is not a shock to anyone who has been watching closely and honestly. It is the real proof of a big truth that I and a few other experts have been trying to tell leaders in Washington for years. It is a truth that the big offices in American defense policy have always tried to handle instead of face directly. 300 Khaibar-Shekan ballistic missiles hit the IDF's Northern Command. That command is the main control center for Israel's entire military setup along the Lebanese and Syrian borders. It is the headquarters that directs every brigade, every air defense unit, every supply center, and every command and control job across the most important area in Israel's military structure. It was struck with great accuracy, a huge number of missiles, and lasting damage that has never happened before in the history of Israeli military fights. 5 brigades were not just weakened or slowed down, they were destroyed as working combat units. Their command buildings were wiped out, their supply lines were cut, and their communication systems were silenced in one short attack window. I want to be very clear about what that means, because the word destroyed is often used too lightly in military talk, and it should not be used lightly here. When I say 5 brigades were destroyed, I mean that the organized structure that makes a brigade a ready fighting unit, the command centers, the communication systems, the supply systems, and the fire control setup, was completely taken out. The soldiers did not disappear, and not all the equipment was blown up, but the groups that turned soldiers and equipment into a real fighting force stopped working. In military terms, that difference does not matter. A brigade that cannot be led, cannot be supplied, and cannot talk to others is not a brigade anymore. It is just a group of people in a fighting space with no order. Israel is asking for a ceasefire, not talking from a position of equal strength, not asking for a short break to get ready and fight again. It is asking from the position of a military that has just seen the main base of its northern defense fall apart under 300 missiles that its air defense system could not stop. These missiles came from an enemy whose power Israel had underestimated for 15 years, while the American defense leaders it trusted kept saying the danger was under control. The danger was not under control. It never was. And tonight, this talk is going to explain exactly why. Before this talk goes further, 4 questions need honest answers. These are the kinds of answers that secret meetings in Tel Aviv and Washington are creating right now, but they will never share them in public statements. First, how did 300 Khaibar-Shekan ballistic missiles reach the IDF's Northern Command headquarters and 5 working brigades all at the same time? And what does that attack tell us about the real condition of Israeli missile defense after many years of American money put into Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow? Second, the destruction of 5 brigades in one attack is the worst single loss in IDF history. What does it show about the weak spots in how Israel places and protects its ground force command centers, and who in the IDF planning group is responsible for the choices that created those weak spots? Third, Israel is asking for a ceasefire. From my experience, countries ask for ceasefires when they decide that keeping on fighting will lead to worse results than stopping. What has the IDF leadership decided about the direction of this fight that led to that choice? And what does that decision tell us about the real strength of Israeli military power right now? And fourth, Washington's reply to the destruction of 5 Israeli brigades will decide American trust in this area for the next 10 years. What is Washington really able to do? What is it really ready to do? And how big is the difference between those 2 answers? If you are watching this channel because you want the honest view of someone who spent many years inside the system and no longer has to protect its stories, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. The important talk that needs to happen about what took place in northern Israel last night is not happening in regular news. It needs to happen here. Let me explain to you what really happened. Not the story that will come from IDF press meetings in the coming days, but the real facts that the attack information and the damage on the ground in Israel now support. The IDF's Northern Command is not just one building for leaders, it is the main thinking center for Israel's entire northern military setup. It is the place where every combat action along the Lebanese border, every teamwork between ground soldiers and air support, every supply line for frontline units, and every communication link from brigade level to main national command is handled. Its place, its design, its protection, and its importance have been studied carefully by Iranian and Hezbollah intelligence teams for years. When I look at what Iran attacked last night, I see not a quick, easy target, but the result of long, careful, step-by-step intelligence work that mapped the full working setup of Northern Command with details that only come from years of focused effort. 300 Khaibar-Shekan missiles were not fired only at Northern Command. They were sent across a group of targets that showed a full understanding of how the IDF's northern working structure really runs, where the key points are, which buildings cannot be replaced, and how destroying certain groups of targets would cause a chain of failures that led to 5 brigades being destroyed at once. The group of targets included the Northern Command headquarters and its backup buildings, the brigade-level command posts that those headquarters supported, the communication relay systems connecting them, the supply centers keeping forward units going, and the air defense control centers whose removal would weaken the defense against later attack steps. In my view, the way the missiles were chosen showed Iranian planning at a smart level that Western military groups have been slow to accept from a country under sanctions. The missile choices were not all the same. Important fixed buildings got enough missiles planned to break strong targets. Mobile command posts got enough missiles to cover the areas where those posts were thought to be working. Communication systems got enough missiles aimed at the weak points of relay towers, main cable nodes, and satellite connection buildings. This is not the targeting method of a group making things up against a known enemy. It is the targeting method of a group that has been getting ready for this exact attack for a long time and has put in the intelligence and planning work needed to make it work as strongly as possible. The 5 brigades that stopped working as organized fighting groups did not lose their soldiers in big groups of deaths. I want to be clear about that. What they lost was the organized setup that turned soldiers into a fighting force. Command posts went quiet when the buildings holding them were hit. Supply lines fell apart when the center buildings directing supply movement were destroyed. Fire support teamwork broke when the artillery and missile control buildings managing long-range fire were taken out. Communication networks broke into pieces when relay systems were taken down across the attack time. A brigade without command, without supplies, without fire support teamwork, and without communications is not a brigade in any useful fighting sense. It is a group of armed people who no longer know where their orders are coming from, cannot get new supplies, cannot work together on fire support, and cannot tell their higher leaders what is happening. In the mix-up that follows the destruction of the organized setup holding a group together, small units make their own choices that make the bigger failure worse across the whole group. That worsening is what the 5 brigade destructions really mean. The chain failure of organized strength across 5 groups at the same time. Now let me talk about the air defense question straight, because it is the question that every serious military expert needs to answer honestly. Israel's layered missile defense setup, Iron Dome for short range, David's Sling for middle range, Arrow for long range, is the most advanced combined missile defense system used by any American friend in the world. The money put into that setup over the past 20 years has been huge, steady, and serious in skill. The question of why it did not stop 300 Khaibar-Shekan missiles from destroying 5 brigade command centers is not a question about whether the system worked. It worked. The question is about whether it was able to work at the big size the attack needed. The numbers of missile defense against a 300 missile attack are what they are no matter how good the defense tools are. Each try to stop a missile uses up interceptors from a limited supply. Each battery has a reload time that creates short gaps in coverage. Each attack solution needs computer time that limits how fast many incoming missiles can be handled at once. When 300 Khaibar-Shekan missiles are flying at the same time in a short attack time, the total stop demand is bigger than the handling power of the whole defense setup working in the northern Israel area. The missiles that get through the defense reach their targets. Last night, the missiles that got through were enough to destroy 5 brigade command centers and the Northern Command building they reported to. What this means in big strategy terms is something I have been saying in different ways for years. No limited defense system can protect forever a force whose enemy has the ability to make many missiles, the patience to wait, and the smart intelligence to make attack groups bigger than the defense system's stop limit. The IDF built the best missile defense setup it could get. Iran built an attack group sized to go beyond it. The result of last night's attack was decided not by last night's choices, but by the 15 years of big strategy choices that came before it on both sides. Israel made choices that put defense air power first and believed that layered missile defense would be enough to protect ground force command centers from ballistic missile attack. Iran made choices that put ballistic missile power first, sized exactly to beat that missile defense setup. The cost of those choices came due last night over northern Israel. I have watched the Pentagon spend hundreds of billions of dollars on systems that look strong on paper and work differently in real fights against enemies who had studied them closely. The Khaibar-Shekan is not a weapon that surprised me. What surprised me, or more correctly, what did not surprise me but should have surprised the people whose job was to stop this, is how long it took the defense leaders to take seriously the exact powers that Iran was building and using. Let me explain what the Khaibar-Shekan really is, not the news release version, but the real technical and fighting facts that made it the weapon that destroyed 5 Israeli brigades last night. The Khaibar-Shekan is the top result of an Iranian ballistic missile building program that has been improving step by step since the middle 1990s, with one clear and steady fighting goal: build a weapon able to beat the American-supplied missile defense setup protecting American partners in the Middle East. Every technical choice in the Khaibar-Shekan's design shows that goal directly. The distance that puts launch spots beyond enemy counterfire range, the final movement ability that beats intercept computer guesses, the guidance without GPS that makes the weapon safe from the electronic fighting tools that Israeli and American forces might use against GPS systems, the warhead design made for the exact damage needed against the target types Iran has been getting ready to hit. From where I stand, having spent years inside American defense planning and having watched the intelligence reports about Iranian ballistic missile building change across 2 decades, the most important thing to understand about the Khaibar-Shekan is not what it can do. It is how it was built, even though so much was done to stop it from being built. Iran built the Khaibar-Shekan under heavy economic sanctions that stopped it from getting Western computer chips, precise factory tools, and the world defense buying channels that most countries use to get advanced military tools. The American defense leaders' usual answer to this problem was a steady belief that a country under sanctions simply could not build the smart guidance, engine, and warhead technologies needed to make a weapon this strong. That belief was wrong, and it was wrong in ways that the proof available should have shown years before last night's attack. The guidance system that let 300 Khaibar-Shekans hit spread out targets across a hard area with the accuracy needed to destroy 5 brigade command centers shows a building program that mixed Iranian-owned engineering skill with technical knowledge gained through special ways that sanctions could never fully block. Russian technical knowledge about ballistic path improvement and final guidance science was gained through defense teamwork channels that the Russian-Iranian link has kept going across years of American pressure. Chinese skill in signal handling and precise navigation was added through deals that stayed below the level that American sanctions watching could catch and stop. But the most important single help to Iran's ballistic missile guidance building, the technical base on which the Khaibar-Shekan's GPS-free navigation setup is built, was an American system that Iran caught whole in 2011, the RQ-170 Sentinel. I want to be straight about what that catch meant because I have heard it made small in American defense talks in ways that show a unwillingness to admit how big the intelligence loss was. When Iranian electronic fighting teams guided that drone to a soft landing inside Iranian land using GPS trickery, feeding it false location data that made its navigation system think it was going back to its base in Afghanistan, while it was really coming down into Iran, they got something more valuable than the physical body. They got direct access to the GPS receiver design of an American military system, the signal check rules, the navigation system thinking, the exact technical details that American military GPS receivers use to decide if incoming location signals are real. Iranian engineers spent years taking every technical lesson they could from that system. What they learned about American GPS weakness shaped a whole new group of Iranian weapons building, including the GPS-free guidance setup built into the Khaibar-Shekan, exactly because Iranian engineers understood from direct study of American systems that GPS weakness was a basic weak point of American-made military systems. The Khaibar-Shekan does not need GPS. It was designed that way on purpose, and the Israeli missile defense systems that tried to stop it last night were fighting against a weapon that their design plans did not fully expect. David's sling and arrow were built against certain danger pictures that the Khaibar-Shekan's final movement ability and multi-way guidance setup were specially made to stay outside of. In my experience, the most dangerous buying mistake is not getting the wrong weapon. It is getting the right weapon against the wrong danger picture. Israel bought top-level missile defense systems against the danger picture that existed when those systems were designed. Iran built a weapon against the danger picture of those exact defense systems. That difference, the attacker updating its weapon against the defender's system while the defender's system stayed fixed after buying, is the technical reason for what happened last night. I have been saying for years that the American defense buying process is too slow, too full of office rules, and too controlled by company interests to keep up with enemies who can make faster building choices outside the limits of democratic watching and congressional money rules. The destruction of 5 Israeli brigades by 300 Khaibar-Shekan missiles is the real proof of that argument in a way that no buying official, no defense company, and no congressional group member can honestly ignore. I sat in rooms with these people. I know how they think when a crisis comes. I know the usual office reactions that start, the office patterns that take over, and the difference between what is said in those rooms and what is told to the public. What Washington is doing right now in reply to the destruction of 5 Israeli brigades is exactly what I would have guessed from those rooms, and it is not enough. The quick reply package that Washington has put together shows the real limits of what American strategy freedom allows in this exact situation, and those limits are stronger than the public statements now coming from the State Department and the Pentagon are meant to suggest. Emergency weapons shipments are being sped up, more interceptor missiles, precise bombs, intelligence help packages. These are real, they help a little, and they will not change the basic strategy situation that caused last night's attack. The choices that would really change the strategy situation are choices that Washington's current risk thinking, shaped by the Hormuz situation, the area base weakness thinking, and the home political limits of an administration handling many crises at once, is not ready to approve. Direct military hits against Iranian ballistic missile making and storage buildings would remove the Khaibar-Shekan danger at its starting point. They would also start the full use of Iran's reply setup in ways whose later results the American political system is not now ready to accept. Let me be straight about something that I think gets hidden in the public talk about American stopping power in this area. Washington's unwillingness to take direct military action against Iran is not mainly because of military strength. American forces in the area have the strength to do big attack operations against Iranian military buildings. The unwillingness is because of handling results. the understanding that the second and third level effects of direct American military action against Iran in this strategy setting are bigger than the political and strategy acceptance of the results those actions would create. Iran has built its reply setup exactly to make this thinking turn out the way it is turning out now. The Hormuz blocking ability, the area base attack setup, the Hezbollah start line, these are not separate abilities put together for separate reasons. They are parts of one combined stopping setup designed to make sure that the cost of direct American military action against Iran always stays higher than the political wish of American leaders to pay it. I have watched this stopping setup be built across years of Iranian strategy spending, while American policy toward Iran moved back and forth between strong pressure plans that put real money costs but got no strategy surrender, and talk plans that looked for peaceful answers but never fully fixed the main safety reasons driving Iranian military spending. Neither way fixed the basic problem. Iran kept building. The power shown last night is the total result of everything that neither way was able to stop. What Israel is now going through and what Washington is watching from the limited position its own strategy choices have created is the result of a 15-year time during which the mix of Israeli military action and American sanctions put real costs on Iranian military programs, but did not stop those programs from becoming fully ready. The killing of Iranian nuclear scientists, the Stuxnet computer attack against Iranian machine operations, the hundreds of Israeli airstrikes against weapons trucks in Syria, all of these actions put real costs and caused real delays. None of them stopped the Khaibar-Shekan from being built, tested, and fired in the numbers that destroyed 5 Israeli brigades last night. From where I stand, the honest view of Washington's current position is this. The United States is watching a friend take the biggest military loss in its modern history. It has the military strength to greatly change the strategy situation through direct action, and it is not going to use that strength in the ways that would really decide the outcome because the results of doing so are bigger than what the current political setting will allow. That difference between strength and willingness is the most important strategy fact in the Middle East right now, and Iran has known it, planned around it, and used it with great care. The ceasefire request that Israel has sent through American helpers is the real showing of what that difference means in action. Israel has decided correctly, in my view, that keeping on fighting under current conditions leads to worse results than stopping. Washington is now in the position of handling a ceasefire process for a friend whose military setup has just been badly broken, while at the same time trying to keep the look of stopping power in an area where that power has just taken a clear and recorded hit. In my experience, the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the most weapons. It is the one who knows exactly why he is fighting, who has clear purpose that stays strong through loss, through delay, through the kind of long pressure that breaks groups built on less sure bases. Iran and Hezbollah know why they are fighting. I do not say that as support for their goals or their ways. I say it as a military professional who has spent many years studying what makes fighting groups strong and what makes them break. The clear purpose that keeps Iranian strategy spending going across decades of sanctions, killings, and military delays is not made by news stories. It is based in a real national belief about being independent, about fighting back against outside control, about the right to build the strategy powers that self-defense needs, a belief that outside pressure has often made stronger instead of weaker. The Revolutionary Guard Corps officers who planned and carried out last night's attack group are not chance takers. They are strategy professionals, shaped by a group that has been at war in every way that word means for all of their working lives. They watched friends killed by foreign intelligence services. They kept their work going through computer attacks that destroyed machines and broke factory buildings. They kept their strategy programs going through money pressure that made the wider society they worked in poor. The result of that long test is the fighting power used last night, built, improved, and carried out by a group that has been tested under the strongest pressure its enemies could give and has come out of each test with its strategy promise still whole. I have seen what happens to military groups that fight without that clear purpose. I have watched American forces carry out actions in areas where the big goal was never clearly set, where the link between the small actions being done and the big results being wanted was never clearly explained, and where the group confidence that makes organizations work under pressure weakened as the difference between effort and result became impossible to ignore. The difference with what Iran has built is a lesson in ways that the American defense leaders find hard to admit.